beautiful people, and thank you for choosing this video. This is a recreation of Tyntesfield house in Somerset. I had two floor plans that I went from. One area in particular did cause quite a lot of confusion. I didn't know whether it was an actual hallway, whether it wasn't a hallway. It was also only on one of the floor plans. I had to resize this build quite a lot, several times, mostly because halfway through I was like, there's a beautiful garden, how can I not try and put this in? There were lots of levels, so I also end up doing a lot of attempts, because my landscaping is not the best. It is definitely something I struggle with. So I get the base done and then I start landscaping as well. But I absolutely love the garden. As if you've watched many of my videos, you will know I really enjoy doing the gardens in The Sims. It's probably got something to do with my garden is rubbish, partly because the dog digs it up, but also just because I am not green thumbed. I do not have a clue what I'm doing. So yeah, this build consists of 3 floors. As you can tell, we're already on the 3rd floor. And it also has a smaller room on the top for the 4th floor. It's literally just one room and it's kind of added into the roofing as well. So we've already gone straight onto the roofing. Absolutely loved the roofing in this, especially this part in particular, just because it was really different to what it looks, to what I would normally make. So I would normally keep it quite simple. And just use the one roof, and I overlapped them and it came up with this really nice sort of bit where you can see the 2 roofs individually, but they work well together, and I like how the corners are defined. So I used I can't remember the type of roofing because this is me, and I just go along with things. So the roofing that goes around the edge of this part that I currently started there, I've tried to do this several times and it does tend to work, but at the same time I do have difficulty with it. It tends to either be too big or too little, and it takes me quite a long time to figure this out. And if you do want it, so you do a roof that looks like this, so it looks like the rims are in the roofing, you do have the smaller roof that is literally just one side. You've got a flat side and then a small angle on it. This is perfect. It does fit really well with the other roofs on top, so you can have that whole layer making it look like one roof area. Problem with some of the roofing at one point, I believe, where I was moving things up and down, that I end up losing some of it. As you will see, that some of it I've done it and pull it on, and I've gone into putting all the details on before I even think about doing the landscaping, and then this also gets a bit messed up. So guys, make sure you do your research if you're recreating something, because it really does pan out well. And in all honesty, I saw lots of pictures, but I never saw the garden, and it's definitely worth doing your landscaping first. Another big mistake I made, this build that I'm doing here, just on this side with the roofing, that is actually in the completely wrong place. Unfortunately, things like this happen quite a lot when I'm building. This was definitely the biggest one, and I was looking at it like, should I just leave it? But then obviously my perfectionism just cuts in, and I was like, no, it's got to be moved over. So there we are, we're sort of moving it over now. And as you can see, I've also got rid of some of the roofing there, and I'm still not entirely sure, if I'm honest. It looks like this area should be a courtyard, and then you see the little corridor that's open as well with no roofing. When looking at the roofing, you could see the individual rooms as I am doing currently there. However, it does actually seem, as far as I'm aware for now, and as it is built, it seems like there is a corridor there. However, it's more for an architectural point of view that I do add it again in a little while, and then I add on the archways. But at the same time, this is the side where I saw certain pictures and I had to figure it out from quite a long distance. So I've done a lot of resizing here, just preparing ready for the landscaping. And I do resize it quite a lot. And I was actually quite impressed with how much I managed to resize it personally, because I was like, I'm just going to go for it. Let's see what happens. And guys, if you're doing a big build, once you've got the basics down, resizing is always a good idea. I mean, our Sims don't really need that much space, but at the same time, if you can fit a garden in, it's always worth it. I love doing big buildings, which not many people do in all fairness, but I really do enjoy it. It's something that I just get so much out of. But as you can tell, it gets frustrating, especially when recreating and you want everything to be perfect. But the resizing, it makes a big difference to then what you can do with the exterior. So around at the courtyard area, we have this lovely circular part that comes out. And obviously we can do this with the foundation. So that made me very happy. I actually do change this a bit later. So I done that, and as you can see, I'm using a lot of foundation here to try and get the different levels. I find that by doing this, I can then move it up, like with the landscaping, so you can go along the edge, and so from there you can make it level with the edge of that part of the foundation. For me, that makes it easier because then I know what levels I'm doing, and it kind of gives me a boundary. I do struggle with landscaping. I'm not gonna say I'm fantastic. I do really. I get frustrated with it. It's certainly something that I need to improve on, and hopefully, if you keep watching these videos, it will definitely be improved on. So, as you can also see earlier, I created a room before putting these smaller parts of decoration in. Now, with the pictures, you can see that it sort of has a dip, and then you have like the wall come out of it, rather than it just being a wall on that layer. It's sort of on the bottom layer, but it goes off to the top. Unfortunately, it is sticking up a little bit, but at the same time I managed to get that effect, and I do this quite a lot. I also do it with a bit of ivy later. I basically create the room underneath, and then using the BB move objects you can then move it up, and quite often it changes colour. It goes from like a darker colour to a lighter colour when you finally get it into the right area. So you can see I can do it here again. It keeps everything level and together, and it kind of, you start seeing certain patterns in it. So I knew that if I linked it up together, that would be sitting in the right place still on the part I wanted it to be in. So with the roofing, I had a few different troubles, as you'll be able to tell from the beginning introduction. There's two different roofing colours. Some of it I weren't sure whether it was glass. There's definitely one glass area, and then there's another part and it's all nice orange, and so we do have two different roof colours. This isn't personally something I enjoy doing, but I actually really like the effect that it came out with at the end. So it's definitely something I'm going to do again. I liked that it gave it something else to stand out with the different roof colours. So I enjoyed doing that part. Unfortunately, I did lose some of the footage, but for that part in particular, I was just using BB move objects and also live edit objects, and that's where I really made a part of the jungle adventure pylons. I made that really small and moved it up more because of the material look of it. There were other ones I could use, like little marble ones and things, but it just didn't go well with the wall covering, and it wasn't the right colour. And I really like the fact that I got something that really blended in. I love this part of the build because it stands. I've never seen it before, and this is why I really like doing recreations. It's creative, and yet I learn so much things. I learn more things for being able to do my own builds. I get even more ideas, and this is definitely something I am going to reuse. I really like it. It's kind of like you're doing an outside area that's inside, but we're not worrying about walls and things, and we can have this nice little part where you've got the essentially it looks like it's a wall, but at the same time it really changes the architecture. So as you can see, I've been really doing the ivy. There was lots of different pictures, and when it comes to the exterior, the ones that have a bit more detail on it, so with the ivy, they're the ones I go for. I like doing the detail, I like adding it. Therefore, there might not be ivy there now. That might have just been 1 year there was loads of ivy, although it does take a while to grow, so I'm guessing it was for longer than a year. But in that case, I see that and I see it as a lot more character, and I add it. There are more pictures of it without any ivy there than there was of it there. So the Chimneys, I really starting to get creative with the Chimneys. I used two different ones and then I piled them on top, as you can tell. I used lots of pictures to try and get them into the right places as well. And also half walls too, because quite often we get Chimneys where they have a slightly chunkier, bigger base. And I use the half walls for this because all of the available Chimneys are really small. And you do get some that plump out a bit at the bottom, but I really like to try and recreate that as much as possible. And so that's what I done. I added half walls and I added two Chimneys, and it's easy to do with no resizing this one. I just scaled them up using, not scaled them, I bumped them up using the B-Beam Move objects. So this area here is the chapel. I really enjoyed doing the chapel, and as you can tell, I got to play with the idea of being able to use I was about to say pylons, the columns, to use the columns to their full effect and making them rise up. I really liked this part, but I did change it. Now, there were several reasons why I changed it, and the main reason is standing right in front of you, that I wanted to add a bit more decoration. I really wanted parts of it to stand out more, and so we end up with a bigger one and a smaller one so we can have the friezes on the outside as well. I also was not settled on what ones to have. There was several different ones that would go well with this build. I wanted something quite decorative to start with, so I went with the ones that came with the Discover University pack. But I ended up changing these as well, but unfortunately they were changed into ones that do not go higher than one level, so they could not be stretched. But at the same time, it made it look a little bit older. It gave it a little bit more of a historical look rather than going straight into something that looks a bit more modern. And with the decoration on the top of the cathedral, sudden hesitation whether that was the right word, and it's not, it's a chapel. I know what I'm doing sometimes. I don't tend to use them. The little rectangular pipes with the roofing on, that's not something I've actually really particularly thought about using before. I've always thought they were quite big and bulky, and I never had any idea what to do with it, in all honesty. So I used them and it came out really well. So guys, if you ever feel like there's something and it's not going to look right, just try it anyway. So with the part of the tower that you've just seen me do as well, that, as you can tell, there was a lot going on. I really tried to add the circular bottom to it, and I thought about making it slightly bigger, and then this conflicted with the courtyard area, and so I end up having a little square at the bottom. It still gives you the idea of the recreation because there is a part there and it should be a bit more rounded, but I either went with round and big and oblong, so it really wasn't fitting right and it just wasn't central. And to me, something not being central or not fitting in properly is just that plays on my mind quite a lot. And so we ended up with just a nice simple square. So going back to more landscaping, I keep going back to the landscaping for the simple reason was it just didn't want to stay where it was. So I would do one area and that would be flat, and then I would end up doing the other area and realise that some of it wasn't the way it was meant to be, and I'm trying to be a perfectionist and I'm sitting there like, I just want it all to be flat, and sure, if I could do it so there wasn't a slope there, that would be perfect. So the flowers, absolutely loved doing the flowers. You can see I was a little bit lazy with it. There was a lot of difficulty with the placement, especially with these purple ones, but I really enjoyed doing them for the simple reason of trying to get that shaping in. I've not really done anything with shaping. I normally put lots of wild sort of looking flowers in. I don't tend to try and create the shapes, and as you can see, this one is not symmetrical. So I go around and I do lots of copying and pasting and fixing with using the rooms. And if you want things to be symmetrical, using rooms is a good idea because you can just put the room on, and if it's with the move objects cheat, if you have that, none of it, as long as it's inside the room, it will not be deleted by placing a wall there. Even if the wall was halfway through some of the bushes would still be there. However, it's not guaranteed they would be copied back. And so I used this technique to get them symmetrical to start with, as symmetrical as I could. And I was really happy with the outcome, to be honest. I'm not really one for using the rooms. It's definitely something I forget that you can copy a whole area, and it becomes so useful in so many smaller situations. You think, now I've got to do the other side, now I've got to try and create 3 more of these, and just put a room around it and you can copy it. It saves a lot of time and it saves a lot of stress when it comes to trying to make things perfectly. So this area that I just added a path to, as you can tell, there are meant to be stairs there, and I was really hoping to be able to do this, but with the length of how far the stairs would go because of the height, it wasn't happening, so I just changed it into a smaller sitting area. Now the rest of this is just general decoration that I'm adding. It's not based off anything, and I just kept sort of adding an extra just to really bring the garden to life that little bit more. This area here on the on the pictures, unfortunately, it was just an empty space, and I thought it's a nice set. It was actually very, very circular. So I decided to change it into a fountain. I had lots of different ideas. The original idea was to be able to have a smaller sort of fountain inside it, but using one of the pre-made fountains, and I really was hoping to use the first one that I added, but unfortunately I could size it down, but it just, yet again, it wasn't going to sit centrally, so I end up with a smaller one. But at the same time, sometimes not going over the top with things is a good idea. So you can tell I added the hallway again. I'm still not sure. I really am not sure whether that is a hallway, whether it's meant to be open or not. And as I've already said several times, that this area, I had absolutely no idea what was going on at all, except for aerial pictures of the roofing. So this is what I was talking about earlier, with all of that messing around, moving things up and down, and the landscaping. We lost a lot of roofing, and at that point I was quite devastated. It really didn't take long to fix, but it takes long the first time, but to redo something, it actually is a lot easier and a lot quicker because you know what you're doing the second time around. With that part of the roof in particular, the part that comes out up the top, I actually used 4 different roofs to then come out onto the top of it. But they came out, I made them as big as I possibly could, and I made them come out above the other roofs. I loved doing this. It's not something I thought of before, but this roof was really individualistic on the pictures. It stood out. So this is obviously something I really. So a few weeks ago, I said I would be working on a website, and as you can see, this is the results of it. There are lots of builds on here, lots that I haven't featured on my YouTube, either because I got distracted in doing my recreations and I am more interested in that than necessarily showcasing these days. I've done a few showcases of things that I have built previously, but all in all, I am really enjoying doing the speed builds, and that is certainly turned to my main focus. So for my website is tickabooepicbuilds.co.uk, and there are 2 different sections. You've got my creations, and there's lots of different things in there, and you've also got my recreations. It's really easy to navigate. You just click on the plus sign and you come up with the description, and there is also a link to Sim's file share as well. So I hope you enjoy that, guys.